after the Second World War, why were Korea and Germany partitioned between occupants, between their occupiers? Okay, occupiers. While Japan was solely occupied by just one power, the United States. So after the Second World War ended, it ended in Germany with the capture of Berlin and the disappearance of uh, Adolf Hitler. And then the Asian part of the Second World War ended in August 1945 with the twin American nuclear tests on the people of Japan. So that was the end of the Second World War. And when the Second World War ended, you see, Germany, what is the situation in Germany when the Second World War ended with the fall of Berlin? The Soviets took Berlin. The USSR took the majority of Germany from the east. And the allies, the Western allies, they took whatever was left from the west. So Germany was already effectively partitioned when the war ended. The eastern side, all USSR occupied. The western side occupied by the Americans, the French, and the Americans, the British, and the French. And that's why Germany had to be partitioned, because the moment the war ends, the East and the West are automatically suspicious of each other. The Americans are automatically, instinctively suspicious of the Soviets. They have become very powerful. Now we fear them. Then the Soviets realize the Americans are treating us as enemies. So let's do it then. Let's have it. And that was a deal. So that's why the moment the Second World War ended, Germany was already occupied by two different forces. And that's why it was partitioned essentially along those lines. Even Berlin itself was partitioned. Now, Korea, when the Second World War ended, you had a situation where the northern part of Korea, you had Soviet troops there. Okay? And in the southern part of Korea, you had American or Western troops there. So once again, the moment the war ends, the peninsula is kind of partitioned. And that is what eventually led to the Korean War and the creation of North and South Korea. And that has never actually ended officially, right? There's never been an actual official ceasefire. It's a different story. So that's the deal with Germany as well as Korea. That's why these two were partitioned. The actual partition for Korea happened in the 1950s with the end of the Korean War. Now, what about Japan? So when Japan was on the brink of losing the Second World War, let's go to the map. Okay. Oh, we haven't opened the map today. Well, that is serious. We should rectify that immediately. So here we are. So we're going to talk about Japan. So let's go back to 1945. And at that time, see, Imperial Japan, it had massive territories. The large island in the north of Japan is Sapporo. It's Hokkaido Island, right? Hokkaido. And north of it, you have the Kuril Islands. The Kuril Islands belong to Japan. I've made a couple of videos about this in detail. Even parts of the Kamchatka Peninsula, where they belong to Japan, and Sakhalin probably also belong to Japan. Now, Japan is doing poorly in the Second World War. So the Soviets, what they do, they take over Kamchatka, they take over Sakhalin, and they take over the Kuril Islands as well. Okay? And then the atomic bomb tests happen over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and Japan surrenders. And then the Americans take over. But the Americans can't take over the territories the Soviets have occupied. So you see this? Kunashir is Russian territory. You see, how far is it from Hokkaido? If we look at the distance, it's like 25 kilometers. So you can't see it from the shores, but it's right offshore. What about this island? This is a Russian-held island. Look at that. What about this little island here? That's a Japanese island. Okay. What about this one here? I think that's also Russian territory. So the Russians took all these islands. They took the advantage of Japan's misfortune, and they took all these islands as any reasonably rational nation will do. So even Japan, actually, its territory was partitioned, right? Whatever the Americans were able to occupy, they took it, and they still hold it, and the rest was held by the Russians. And Japan and Russia have this territorial dispute about the Kuril Islands, and the Russians aren't giving anything to Japan. Okay, so that's what happened. Even Japan actually was partitioned, even though you may not realize it.